Reconnaissance version gave the West its first close-up glimpse of a MiG-25 in service conditions. In autumn 1971, 4 MiG-25Rs like this one were unloaded at Cairo Airport in Egypt. They were referred to as the X-500. Egyptian personnel were kept at a distance. The aircraft were highly secret. From October 1971 through March 1972, they flew reconnaissance missions over the Sinai Peninsula and the Mediterranean. The aircraft had Egyptian markings, but they belonged to the Soviet Union and had Soviet pilots. Reconnaissance flights over Israeli airspace were carried out at speeds of about 2.5 times the speed of sound. An Israeli F-4 Phantom attempted to intercept one of the MiG-25s. It simply accelerated to Mach 3.2 and disappeared. The engines that made the MiG-25's extraordinary performance possible were developed by the Tumansky Group from a design originally intended for a high-speed, remotely piloted drone. Each engine provided vast thrust of almost 25,000 pounds using full afterburner. At the time it was introduced, the afterburner unit was one of the largest ever built. The huge twin vertical fins were designed to provide stability at extreme speeds and altitudes. High-speed roll was controlled not by ailerons, but by all-moving tail surfaces, called slab stabilators. The design of the MiG-25 was directed entirely towards achieving high speed and high altitude. It was not meant to be maneuverable. It was not meant to have good low-speed performance. It was simply meant to travel through the air as fast as Soviet ingenuity could make it go. Artyom Mikoyan did not live to see the MiG-25 go into service. He had a heart attack in 1969 and left his office, never to return to the MiG Design Bureau. He died in December 1970. In the late 1960s, the United States Air Force was writing requirements for a new tactical fighter. The aircraft that resulted was the McDonnell Douglas F-15. The complexity and sophistication of its design and construction was strongly influenced by the West's vague understanding of the nature of the new MiG-25. In October and November 1967, MiG-25s set a number of speed and altitude records. They carried loads of 2 tons to altitudes of almost 100,000 feet. They flew 1,000-kilometer closed courses at speeds of more than 1,800 miles an hour. From these figures and other intelligence information, Western analysts made several false assumptions, all of which affected the design and construction of the F-15. One was that the MiG-25 was faster in a straight line than was really the case. The second was that it must be built from highly sophisticated lightweight materials. The third was that it was powered by a sophisticated turbofan jet engine. They also deduced that it had long range and good close-in combat performance. When the F-15 emerged, it was an extraordinary machine, a genuine air superiority fighter, also capable of ground attack, with long range and very effective radar. It was extremely complex and extremely expensive. And the Soviet adversary that had so strongly influenced its design did not really exist. The F-15A was ready for its first flight in July 1972. At the same time, the Foxbat was flying its reconnaissance missions over Israel in Egyptian colors. In Russia, the first service models were being introduced into Soviet Air Force squadrons. The American military still did not understand the true nature of the Foxbat, but they did have extremely high expectations of their own new superfighter. The F-15's performance through the test program was excellent. It verified that the enormous amounts of money poured into the F-15's development had bought what the military had paid for, a genuine superfighter. Very early in its career, the F-15 set out to defeat the Foxbat. Not in combat, but in the field of time-to-climb records, where an aircraft tries to reach a given altitude in the shortest possible time. By the mid-70s, time-to-climb records established by the Foxbat had been broken by the F-15 Eagle. The MiG-25 began to enter service in the Soviet Union in late 1971 and early 1972. For Soviet Air Force pilots, it opened up entirely new dimensions of performance, and a dedicated trainer version was essential. It was called the MiG-25U and had a completely redesigned nose with two separate cockpits. The pilot sat in the high cockpit at the back and the student in front. The trainer's performance was just as good as the single-seater, and a second armed version was developed, able to carry air-to-air missiles. By 1976, MiG-25s had been in service for almost 4 years, but still no one in the West had seen one up close, and the mysteries of the Foxbat's real nature still existed. Then, on September the 6th, a MiG-25 took off from the Sakharovka Air Base at Vladivostok and landed, quite unexpectedly, at a Japanese airport. Its pilot, Viktor Belyenko, had defected. Western authorities examined it minutely. Some of the myths were at last dispelled. It was heavier and simpler in construction than had been supposed. Its range was shorter. It was not a close combat fighter. Its brutally powerful jet engine had poor low-speed performance. The truth was out. The MiG-25 was indeed an extraordinary aircraft, but it was not the one the West had imagined. It continued to set world records throughout the 70s. 16 of them were established by Mikoyan chief test pilot Alexander Fedotov, including a world absolute altitude record of almost 121,000 feet, which still stands. The MiG-25's enormous thrust-to-weight ratio made it perfect for climbing almost straight up. Boris Orlov reached 64,000 feet in 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Pyotr Ostenko reached 96,000 feet in 3 minutes and 10 seconds. The Foxbat was also fast, flying straight and level and around a circuit. Mikhail Komarov completed a closed 500-kilometer course at an average speed of 1,850 miles an hour. Svetlana Savitskaya set 4 world speed and altitude records. Later, she became the second female Soviet cosmonaut. Throughout the 1970s, upgraded and improved versions of the MiG-25 were introduced into service. They were also supplied to a number of foreign countries: Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Syria, Iraq, and India. All bought MiG-25s from the Soviet Union. The MiG-25 is a deadly weapon. but it is loved in the Soviet Air Force for a reason nothing to do with its capability as an interceptor or reconnaissance aircraft. Its Russian nickname is Spyorkovos, the alcohol carrier, because it carries 300 liters of pure alcohol for the cooling system. At outlying Air Force bases all over Russia, visiting MiG-25s are greeted enthusiastically with a variety of potential alcohol containers.